Good morning and welcome to our 54th Coffee with the Commissioner event. We're happy to be here. It's Wednesday morning and there's a lot going on, as we all know. So without a whole lot of delay, I want to introduce my special guests that are here this morning. We've got Mark Faulkner. He's the president of Baptist Hospital in Pensacola. We're happy to have him here. We're going to talk about COVID-19 and where we're at with that. We've got our Escambia County Emergency Manager, Eric Gilmore, is here this morning. We're going to talk about Hurricane Delta preps and recovery from Hurricane Sally. And then, of course, we have our County Administrator, Janice Gilley, here. Thank you very much to all of you all for getting up early and being here this morning. To start things off, obviously everyone's looking at the storm. They're looking at Facebook. They're looking at the Hurricane Center, spaghetti models, the whole thing. Eric, why don't you give us an update on the latest of this hurricane? What's happening with it?
Oh, it's expected to be a major hurricane when it gets to the Gulf. It was already a major hurricane yesterday. It grew to a Cat 4. It's hitting Cancun, Yucatan Peninsula as we speak. When it gets in the Gulf, it's going to downgrade to about a Cat 2, maybe Cat 3, and then it's going to rebuild again. So they're expecting landfall as a major hurricane, Cat 3 or higher. As of right now, it's anticipated to go into Louisiana. The exact location is not definitely known. They're anticipating somewhere around Lafayette, Louisiana, sometime around Friday. That being said, everybody still needs to remain vigilant. The difference in this one is Sally. Sally didn't have any steering currents. So we had minimal steering currents with Sally. So she meandered out there and then she sat on top of us and she slowly moved off. This one fortunately has steering currents. So if you're looking at the models kind of converge into one area in Louisiana and kind of agree that this is the path it's going to take. But still, we're just outside the cone of uncertainty. Everybody still needs to remain vigilant and be prepared. You can always see tropical storm gusts or low sustained winds well outside the cone, depending on the size of the storm. We know this one's kind of tight and compact, and that's why it's easily re-energizing and getting to a higher category faster. We could potentially see some gust or some wind in our area. We still have damaged trees. We have leaners. We have they've been topped out. We've got limbs that are hanging around. People need to take inventory around their house, what's going on around their house, and be aware of that. So we're still preparing for a hurricane landfall in Escambia County. That's the posture we're taking, and we're going to go forward. And when we start scaling back is when that thing makes landfall somewhere. So when Delta makes landfall, then we'll start scaling our operations back. But we've got all our partners in play. We've identified all our shelters. We're ready to go. So we're posturing for a landfall, regardless of what Delta does. And then until it proves us wrong and goes to Louisiana, then we'll take a deep sigh, a sigh of relief, and then we'll scale back as needed. So.
A lot of folks have said, and I've seen this online too, that these October hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico typically like a golfer's slice. They go one way, but then they always slice out to the right. And so that's what I believe that happened in some respects with Hurricane Sally, and that's why we got it and it moved. Tell people, because I heard Robert Bender say something in one of the press conferences about how far it moved in 124, where the projected path moved in 124-hour period, like 100 miles. Was it something like 100 miles in a 24-hour period?
It was around 100 miles. That is absolutely correct. And it was due to the lack of steering currents. And they there's projected Sally going to Louisiana as well, somewhere around Louisiana.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember that because I was
what they anticipated. And then here we are, early Wednesday morning. I get a call from Mobile Weather going, it's moving further east and you're getting the brunt of it. So those are calls that I do not want to get. He's absolutely right. It did move that. So yesterday was interesting because we saw the shift, the storm Delta shifted a little further west. And that's kind of unusual. These storms typically don't shift west. So last night at 10 o'clock advisory, guess what? It shifted a little bit more east. So it's gonna walk back and forth right now. You'll probably see it walk a little bit more east. They seem pretty confident in the track, but as I said, until Delta makes landfall in Louisiana, our posture is we're expecting a landfall here in Escambia County. So.
And one of the sites, I think it was Mike's weather page, which is a phenomenal resource. If you haven't, any of the people watching them, most people know about it. Millions of people follow it. But he has all kinds of different facts and figures. And there was a discussion yesterday on there about, no hurricane ever hitting Louisiana in the month of October. Have you heard anything like that, Eric, that it would be unusual for something to hit Louisiana in October?
I haven't checked into that, so I wouldn't doubt it, but I haven't checked into it. Mike's pretty good about his facts and figures when he touts them off. So, but I haven't really checked into that. I do know that we here lately we've had a lot of stronger hurricanes in the month of October. Hurricane Michael was October 10th.
Yes, sure was.
Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Wilma, and then here we have Hurricane Delta. So there are stronger hurricanes in October. Everybody thinks that, oh, we're through August, September, and October and November we're winding down. Well, we are winding down with the amount of storms that we get. The intensification definitely is not winding down. So.
Right on. I saw in the press conference yesterday that you all had discussed going as far away as Jacksonville for folks who wanted to evacuate. Are we encouraging folks to evacuate on this storm, Eric?
As it sits right now, we are not encouraging folks. We're not going to give an evacuation order as of yet. As I said, we want to make sure we've identified at what trigger points we're going to call for an evacuation order, and we're going to give people far in advance enough time to get off the barrier islands and get out of the area, and take into consideration that the 3 mile bridge is down, and the limited access, the limited routes we have. But right now, as it sits, a Louisiana impact we're going to see. I think Mobile Weather had told us this morning, or updated this morning, that if it stays true to the path it's on, we could see up 1 to 3 foot of storm surge or elevated surge in our area, and we could see 2 to 4 inches of rain. So it could be in isolated pockets. So they have us kind of out of the area for tropical storm force winds sustained. So we're outside that, but we could see gust or some winds in our area, but nothing sustained.
And that's if it goes exactly where they're thinking it goes right now.
That's correct. If it goes exactly where the track is now. So this thing could wobble to the east. So.
That's perfect, because that was what I was going to ask you. So that's what we're looking at, 2 to 4 inches of rain, a small surge in the tides, and then very moderate winds, not very much in the way of. Okay.
Absolutely. Of course, increased rip currents along the coast. So yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed that that's exactly how it plays out. So now we'll shift gears. Now we also have, obviously we have Mark Faulkner here from Baptist. And of course, Eric, you're intimately familiar with our COVID-19 response here as the emergency manager. And by the way, I just want to give you kudos for the way you've run that dashboard. There's been a lot of things going on. We've had hurricanes, and I noticed that dashboard has been kept current. And I look at it very, very frequently. And one of the things that I'm looking at, and this is why I wanted to have Mr. Faulkner here today, was our hospitalizations for COVID have gone way down. I mean, I think we were at 250, 255 for a while, and now we're down to 50. And we got into the 40s for a while there. So obviously our positivity rate right now, it looks, according to the dashboard, around 2.7%, which is just based on whether you have 5,000 tests or 500. That's the number of people that are positive. And then we've done 95,000 tests locally. So let me ask Mark first. Mark, do you think, are we over the hump on this thing? Do you think are we where we need to be on this thing?
Yeah, we're in a great place, I think, right now, compared to where we were in July and early August, when we were seeing hospitalizations north of 250, which was very concerning because it did begin to stress the capacity of our hospitals, all 3 hospitals. And yet, by comparison, we've been running around 50 or so hospitalized patients throughout the community, all 3 hospitals, for several weeks now. Now, going back to March and April and even early May, we were in the teens. So back when there was so much awareness and we shut the whole country down, we had low hospitalization rates in our community. That spiked pretty high, got pretty concerning there for a while. And we're back to a very manageable level, I believe. And recall that part of that spike we were seeing was in long-term care patients, where we had a lot of outbreaks in institutionalized settings like long-term care, even prisons. That contributed significantly to that first wave. So are we over the hump? I would say we're on the back end of the first hump. And we're hoping and we're praying we don't see a second hump.
Let me ask you, with folks with widespread wearing of the masks now, even, we've heard different things about mandates being lifted or no penalties being applied, but where I go in the county, we've had our mask up campaign that I believe has been very successful. Others would say not. You should have done it, made it a rule or a law or whatever the case might be. But everywhere I go, everyone's wearing the mask, whether it's to pick up food at Petreller's or going to Walmart or wherever I go, everyone's wearing masks. Any health facility, you're wearing the mask. So the question becomes, a lot of folks have said gloom and doom, the flu season's going to come, and then that's going to, commingle with COVID, and it's going to get worse. My question is, if everyone's really doing a good job of socially distancing themselves, staying away from big groups, wearing the mask, does that have the ancillary benefit of maybe reducing the severity of our flu season?
Absolutely. Those same guidelines about distancing and mask and all that, not only do they work for the COVID virus, but they work for the flu virus.
Exactly.
And we all know that we've got, annually, we got the availability of flu shots. I've had my flu shot. And I would encourage all folks to get their flu shot, because we do know, unlike the COVID situation right now, at least, we don't have a vaccine for COVID. We do have one for flu. So flu shots, distancing, and all that should hopefully work toward a milder flu season.
And talking about the vaccine, I've heard rumors. We've all heard what we've seen in the press. But if they're able to get a vaccine, and it just seems to me that doing it as quickly as they've done it, will it be safe? Will you line up and take that vaccine yourself, Mark?
The first minute it's available for me, I'm taking it. Absolutely.
Wow.
Here's why. There's been a lot of activity. Usually it takes, upwards to 10 to 15 years to create a vaccine for a virus. We're doing this in a year, which is phenomenal. And it's to me, it's a testimony to when organizations, companies, nations work together, what we can actually accomplish. So we're a year into this thing, and we've got 9 or 10 candidates that are in phase 3. And several are already looking very promising. But we've got to go through all the phases. And right now, phase 3 means a broad-based application to the vaccine, where 30,000 get a placebo, 30,000 get the vaccine. We let it run for a few months. We check back and we see, did it actually work? Did it create antibodies? Did it prevent infection? And you just can't accelerate that. It's like a farmer. They can't plant and harvest the next day. There's a time process to the phases of 1, 2, and 3. Well, the good news is we've got many candidates in phase 3. And again, they're looking promising, but you just can't accelerate that. However, having said that, we are beginning to make plans for the deployment distribution of the vaccine. Now, there's the federal involvement, the state involvement, and the local involvement. In fact, we've got our first meeting as the hospitals, Community Health of Northwest Florida, and the Department of Health next Friday, the 16th, to begin planning for the vaccine. We don't have it. We don't know when it's going to be available, but we want to be ready, because there's a lot going into that. Not only is the supply of the vaccine, but there's the prioritization of first responders and healthcare workers and vulnerable citizens, et cetera, et cetera. Sure. And there's other requirements like cold storages, syringes, alcohol swabs, staffing, all the things that go in beyond just having the vaccine available. So we're starting to work through that right now. We'll be taking guidance from the state and the feds in terms of how we prioritize that. But you better believe it. I have confidence that once there's an approval from the FDA, if it's gone through all the processes, once it's approved, as soon as I'm eligible, and I won't be eligible, I'm not a healthcare worker on the front lines, but as soon as I'm eligible, I'm still lining up and getting my shot.
Wow, right on. Well, that's quite an endorsement there. Thank you for that. Because there's a lot of folks, I think there's going to be some initial skepticism. There are folks that I know have never even taken the first flu shot because they know people that take it and then get real sick, and the people that take it are the sickest people they know. So hopefully, the safety is there, and that can be demonstrated. It's my understanding that also the military is going to be involved as well, and in terms of deploying this rapidly. That's what we've heard from the president. So, and speaking of the president, let me ask you, because this is one of the questions I was going to ask you. I'll jump ahead. Obviously, we all know that he was infected and he was given some treatments at Walter Reed, but they talked about the steroid treatment that he's been given, the remdesivir. Those sorts of options are available to citizens as well. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, well, he got this and that, but a lot of what he got is available to anyone who comes into Baptist Hospital. Is that not correct?
Absolutely. Dexamethasone, which is the steroid. It's a common, inexpensive steroid that we are using here and patients can receive here. Remdesivir is in much better, ample supply today than it was six weeks ago. So we have that. And then there's convalescent plasma that we also have available. So yeah, those three are really the arrows we have in the quiver right now that seem to have some effectiveness. There's no silver bullet, unfortunately. And notice that, but the president did not get hydroxychloroquine in the hospital.
Right.
Because again, there's been no evidence that that's actually effective. So anyway, those three regimens are available to anyone and everyone in our community.
You know, and a lot of folks don't realize, but in this in this country, we have phenomenal healthcare, even for someone who might find himself uninsured. You know, if they show up at Baptist Hospital's doorstep, not insured, but with COVID symptoms, they're going to get treated, and they're going to get great treatment, first class, first rate. Other parts of the world, that's not true. It's just not the same. So, I always like to say we're very fortunate to live here in America. Janice, I know we haven't got to you yet, but I wanted to ask you about testing, because now we're looking at, obviously, we've had 95,204 COVID tests. We've had 12,512 positive results here in Escambia County. Unfortunately, we've had 243 deaths, and we've got current 50 folks currently hospitalized. But we know the state pulled their testing sites. So what's going on now with testing for COVID? Where can a citizen get tested? And more importantly, do they have to be presenting with symptoms, or can folks that are just wanting a test go get them? What's the latest on getting tested in Escambia County?
Yesterday I was at Brownsville, and Community Health Northwest is still set up at Brownsville. Okay. So you can still call and get an appointment there. And I did not see necessarily a lot of traffic, so I would assume that you can still drive up there. Now, I have heard that with Ascension, you do have to be symptomatic, but I have not validated that, because what the county has paid for with their CARES is that if you are uninsured, you can go and get tested. So we did not necessarily differentiate between whether or not you were symptomatic or asymptomatic. So that is one of the things that we need to make sure that we clarify with Ascension. But the county has paid for the $750,000 to Community Health Northwest to get all of those rapid test machines, and then also a lot of the inventory to be able to manage a lot of tests. And then we also have provided Ascension up to, I believe, about $480,000, something like that, for their uninsured test. Now, as of last week, we had only gotten one invoice for about $42,000 worth of tests. So there's still a lot of capacity there with our contract with Ascension.
Perfect.
So it's my understanding you can still get tested through Ascension and Community Health Northwest. We've already provided those, that opportunity through the CARES funding with both of them. So part of the decision about the state was the state wanted the county to take over those testing sites and pay those vendors. Because you all had already committed to our local vendors, we did not think there was a need to continue that. Plus, I think, Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they had diminished considerably in the number of people that were actually even going to that test site. Plus, we were dealing with the issue of they had to shut it down every time there was any kind of adverse weather,
right.
Whether it was rain or wind, or, you know what I'm saying? So having our local vendors, and I say vendors very, not trying to be less sensitive, because I know how important all of our healthcare people are in our community. We thought that was just a really good avenue to use them.
So also in talking about the test specifically, we have now the rapid test. Tell people, I think people are under the misconception they walk in and like in 5 minutes they know, like a pregnancy test. It's not that quick, is it? Or is it? Or is it 45 minutes to an hour is what I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so you can either stay and wait, or you can drive off and then they text you or email you or, communicate with you that information. So I'm aware of several people that have gone and had them done, and they did find out within a couple of hours, their test. And especially if, if you don't have as many people in line, like I said yesterday at Brownsville, I don't even know if I saw like 2 or 3 cars go through. Wow. So it's diminished greatly.
Okay, well, that's good news on COVID. Now, Janice, now that we're talking about, I'm talking with you now, let's talk a little bit about recovery from Hurricane Sandy. Well, first, before we jump there, let's talk about the CARES Act implementation. We've now done the closeout of the business, or is there 1 or 2 more days left for the business?
So the business closed at 8 o'clock last night, and we had 920 applications that were submitted. We've already validated 11, so there's over $82,000 ready to go out the door for those. Good. And then there's only been 2 that have been denied out of the 920. So there's a lot of vetting that's going on with these applications. As you know, they started last Friday. So we're having really good response from the business, and the review and evaluation is going well of those applications.
And the individual rent loans or the grants for the individuals, I know we had a huge response. It was like 11,000 applications.
Mhm.
How is that process going? Are we moving through those applications now?
We are moving through those applications. I've not gotten a number today or yesterday from how many they had actually had a chance to review. We have had volunteers that have come in, not only our county employees, but the Studer Group has sent 10 volunteers. And I mean Studer Group, it's also like the Wahoos specifically. They're folks that have a lot of experience in accounting, merchandising, sales, that are used to looking at numbers and documentation. We had 3 come yesterday. We have 7 coming today to work with our team to work through all of those applications, the
Well, that's
review
fantastic.
process. It
And
is.
no,
Pardon me?
that's amazing. I mean, we have such a great giving community, and that's fantastic to hear. Now, I assume there's no issues with personally identifiable information. There's no issues with them seeing these applications, I would assume.
So we do make sure that they are properly trained on how to review and that they don't, obviously they're not going to take any data with them, and all the data is maintained. They're actually coming to a location to work with the data. And I think today they're going to be helping to make sure that we get the all of the manual documents input. So
Okay.
yeah, so there are some controls that we've put in place from that perspective. So I just want to make sure that we clarify the difference between the rent program that the Florida Housing Finance pushed on us, and I'm saying that very politely. That program is so arduous that every single county is having the same issue we are. I talked to Santa Rosa County the other day. They have $1.6 million to give away. They had 80 applicants. Of those 80 applicants, I believe he told me only 16 qualified for $80,000. And it is such a case management nightmare. As you know, we got almost 800 applications for that money, and Meredith and them did a lot of review, and within the first 400, most of them didn't qualify.
Wow.
And so now they're trying to get through the other 400. They had only written 11 checks at your last board meeting. And so it's a very intensive case management situation. They have to go and validate the location. They have to validate who actually is living in that unit. They have to have their social security card. I mean, it's absolute case management nightmare. And then you throw on top of it, we were going to hire people the week of Sally that were going to come in and help with that case management. Well, then you can't get in touch with them because you have Sally, and then you can't get in touch with the people that applied. I mean, it has been a nightmare. And so
I know it's a double-edged sword, Janice, and we saw this at Hurricane Katrina. If it's a pendulum, if you swing it too far toward ease of granting the assistance, then you have a rampant widespread fraud. We had the debit cards, remember that? And people that lived in New Orleans ended up in Atlanta buying jewelry, and it was ridiculous. But it seems like the pendulum has swung too far here because the money that's desperately needed on the streets is not getting there. So I guess my question as a policymaker and oversight guy, how do we break through that red tape and get this money into the hands of the people that need it without running afoul of the state or the feds? How do we do it?
This is our recommendation to you all at this point. The Family Cares Act, you all have more control over. We made that very easy. It's basically a stipend check for our citizens, our most vulnerable citizens under $45,000 a year. And so we are recommending that we focus on that particular program. It's easier to manage. It's easier to get the money validated and get it out into the hands of our community. So we are going to be focusing on that one. It doesn't mean we're ignoring the other one, but it does mean that our focus is to help you all get that money out to our citizens.
Janice, I have a question from Facebook Live. It's, where are we on the issue of debris pickup in gated communities? I've had that question come up right next door to where I live is Nature Trail, 677 houses, gated community. Just for the record, so everyone knows, this money that's being utilized to pick up the debris is federal money from FEMA.
Yes.
Even if you live in a gated neighborhood, you're a federal taxpayer. I believe that debris needs to be picked up. And I understand there's red tape we've got to go through. But so where are we at with that? Because there's folks that are just beating me up every single day about that.
I think we've got the one neighborhood that you're working with. I think we've gotten that one resolved. I think we got all the signatures because they did end up getting private contractors to move the debris. For the most part. And
but here's the thing though, because I spoke to Peg and she told me that if they do it that way, they're going to have to assess their residents and do a one-time assessment and charge the residents. So if they have to do that in order to pay their contractor, will there be a mechanism to pay them back, or?
There is not. There is not. So their other option is to wait until we get the final approval. So we had to make a judgment call yesterday on one of the private neighborhoods. I went and drove Innerarity Island. And because of the nature of Innerarity Island and because of the nature of the storm at the time, 2 days ago, we had to make a call with the state and call it a life, health, safety emergency.
Okay.
And so we did start sending debris trucks in there. And the state agreed with us that it was life, health, and safety because of their position being surrounded by water on all sides. And if there is any kind of subsequent or any substantial storm surge, we were fixing to have another disaster in that particular neighborhood. So we did.
So we're picking up there. We're picking up in Innerarity.
We had to. I mean, we had to. The state agreed, and we do have all the documentation that we need for the federal government from that perspective. That is the only private gated neighborhood that we have permission at this point. And when I say permission, what I mean is that we had to all make a judgment call based on the storm track and what we were seeing. But we feel quite confident that FEMA is going to give us approval for these other gated communities. Unfortunately, when we submitted the paperwork a couple of weeks ago, we were told it could take up to a month. And we're on track for that. We're in the 3rd week now. So it could take another week before we get that permission. And I have spoken to a couple of the gated communities. Sarantine, I told you I'd spoken with Carl Punko, and they had already taken all that, that measure of having contractors come through and already, taking their debris to the landfill. So, it's a situation that happens apparently in every single storm. People make a decision to live in a gated community, and then that means they give up some of their vested rights as a public citizen, I guess, for lack of a better word.
And I think there's no argument there at all. I mean, if you want a private gated neighborhood with private streets with no county responsibility for maintenance, we get all that. If you have a sinkhole, you fix it. But when it comes, this is a little bit different than that, in my opinion, and just my way of looking at it. You're federal taxpayers. We all are, even if you live on a private street. So when federal money comes in with FEMA, you should be entitled to receive those benefits. So I know that, folks should know that we've been working this for a while. You sent that letter on, I believe, the 25th. You sent that letter requesting the ability to pick up in these private neighborhoods. Did we ever receive a response to that letter that you wrote?
Yeah, when they acknowledged receipt, and we've also made subsequent requests to make sure that they were very clear about our request. So I feel like, like I said, it's going through the chains. We did make some phone calls yesterday and the day before expressing our situation with certain private communities, along the water. Also on Pensacola Beach, I think there are 2 private gated communities, but I think they had already moved their debris out to the right of way. They're small on Pensacola Beach.
Hey,
but
while we're on the subject of debris, I know we have some sites identified at myascami.com where you can go and take your vegetative debris. But what about folks that have here's what I'm worried about. If this storm was to track further to the east, and we've got a lot of folks that had sections of fencing that have collapsed, and a lot of that stuff is sitting out at the street, could turn into a sail in the wind. Where can a citizen take this where they're not going to incur fees? Can they take it? Is there any drop-off sites for any of these C&D type things like fencing materials?
Nope, there's only the landfill. And, while that is frustrating, part of the issue is typically you don't have to worry about a second storm coming through. But with C&D, there are only so many locations in which you can, landfill is the place where we have it, quite frankly, right now, that you can drop off. And we can't waive the fees, unfortunately, because if we waive any fees, that it diminishes our opportunity to get reimbursement from FEMA. And it's really disappointing from that perspective, but there's only the landfill at this point for CD&D.
So a citizen's just got to pay that $11 or whatever, and there's no mechanism to
There's
get
also, yeah, and I will mention this, there's also the Oak Grove landfill. So it's a little bit of a drive for folks from downtown, but it is open 8 to 4 up in Oak Grove. And I know people that went and dropped off last Saturday and there wasn't a line at all. So I will mention that that's an opportunity as well.
Now, just playing devil's advocate a little bit about this life safety thing. There's other areas, other streets, Lillian Highway, Gulf Beach Highway, with lots of debris stacked up on public roads. But if we're redirecting our efforts to Inner-Arity, I mean, how is that not a
That's
life
not
safety?
true. That's not true. So we actually diverted our efforts. We said the entire county is still being picked up,
Okay.
but we specifically started them on Gulf Beach Highway, even with a police escort on today's Wednesday, on Monday. So we did tell them any low lying area, anywhere that could potentially get storm surge. So they started on Gulf Beach Highway. I actually drove down there on most of the day for about 3.5 hours on Monday. I went through Myrtle Grove and Gulf Beach, and then up Mobile Highway and those areas. Number one, to check the evacuation routes. Number two, to check the low-lying areas all the way out to Perdido Key. And so I talked to the contractors. They are out there working them. This is the bad news. There's a ton of debris on Gulf Beach Highway. There is a ton of debris in those neighborhoods. And they are focusing. And so I'll tell you this, at 8 a.m. this morning, there is a sheriff's deputy group meeting a team at the corner of Mobile Highway and 9 Mile Road. And they're going to start going south on Mobile Highway. And then they're going to go down Blue Angel, because our goal is to clear those evacuation routes. So I would not say Inner-Arity wasn't a complete focus. The concern was that we did not have specific permission to get into Inner-Arity Island, that community, but we had to find a way to get in there. That's the only thing I would say. So there was no lack of focus on all the rest of the low-lying area.
So right now, what is we're triage, obviously with the storm coming, we're triaging any areas that are low lying on the water. Are they all being treated equally in terms of, have we told our debris haulers, hey,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what exactly is the criteria that we're utilizing for prioritization of the pickup right now?
So first of all, we've not told them to not pick up all over the county, first of all. So they are still picking up all over the county. And I can validate that because I've driven around and looked. I mean, I went through Brownsville and everywhere yesterday looking. So I do know that they are picking up all over the county, but we did tell them, anything from like Bayshore all the way to the Navy base. And then, you skip over the Navy base because that's not our responsibility. That's theirs, unfortunately. I mean, I hate it for them. And then from there to Perdido Key on the low line. And then that would be north and south sides of Gulf Beach. And then, like I said, Perdido Key and Inner-Arity. And then other than that, they're just continuing to go throughout those neighborhoods. You have a map that you'll be getting now every day. One shows you the cumulative pickups since the beginning of the event, when we started the pickups 2 weeks ago. And then it will be the day prior's tickets. So it will show you where the GPS tickets were picked up that day. I think I sent it to you all yesterday, but from now on, you will get it when you get the 3-page debris report. You will also get those 2 maps so that you can look in your area and see.
Those reports have been fantastic, and Thompson's doing a good job keeping us in the loop. The only thing I think a lot of folks are a little bit frustrated about is that they didn't know, because folks, here's what happens. They've got stuff at the street. This happened to me. You got stuff at the street, but you got a whole bunch in the yard still. And, when the truck comes by, you want to be able to, when he's got that claw coming down, you want to be able to load it up. And if you don't know when they're coming, you're at work, whatever the case might be. And I know it's impossible to kind of narrow these guys down. They're doing their work. They're doing the best they can. But that's a frustration the citizens are feeling. $1 million question.
Good news, though. They're going to give you 3 passes.
Yes.
That's the good news. I don't think we want the second pass to come too quickly for exactly your reason. I know several people that just they don't have time to clean their yard until the weekend, right? And so we've only had one full weekend. Well, the first weekend was kind of halfway, but now we've had one full weekend of passes. So this would be, the second weekend when people could probably actually, if we don't have a storm, when people could actually do some more debris to the side, to the road. So we don't want to do the second pass too quickly because like you said, then we're going to give you a heads up. Hey, this is the final pass. And that's when everybody's going to panic. So we need to, we're trying to get the first pass for a lot of places.
You're in the EOC. I see that. Eric, I am assuming you're over there as well in your office. Skanska barges are the topic du jour that everyone's talking about. Obviously, if the storm goes just where it's going right now, these barges that are still loose over in Milton and other places, any danger of them getting dislodged and doing additional damage? And is FDOT communicating with us? I don't care about Skanska. Everyone says, "Oh, Skanska this." I don't care about them. This is FDOT's project. Is FDOT communicating with us on their contractor?
Mm-hmm.
I have not been contacted by FDOT on the contract.
How about you, Janice? Have you heard
Yeah,
from
I
them?
was on a call yesterday where they went through in detail, so much to the extent that they're actually going to even sink. They're going to go on and sink another one of the barges. That way it can't get loose. Because
Wow.
half of it's on the ground and half of it's, floating. So they're going to go in and sink it. They've told us that there is a plan and they are trying to make sure that they get it all, secured. That was yesterday, but they are communicating with the state on what they're doing. The other thing, they're hoping that the ones that are currently on ground don't float away.
Hoping.
It is. I will tell you, learning about this has been that there's not a science to managing barges.
Well, but again, that's FDOT. That's their responsibility.
Mhm.
It's theirs. They own it.
Yeah.
Well, they should own it. Mark, I know you have a pretty significant presence in Gulf Breeze. You've got the Andrews Institute, you've got the hospital out in Gulf Breeze, and now you have employees that are stuck in this nightmare of 90-minute traffic. How is that impacting Baptist Hospital's operations?
It's certainly impacting us. I'll start with the physicians. We have a number of physicians that live in Gulf Breeze or on the beach, and we have a 30-minute response time for call. And obviously, if you live there and you're on call in the ER or surgery or cath lab or wherever, it's impossible. So we have and are making arrangements for them to have temporary housing on this side of the bridge. We've got about 700 employees that either work in Pensacola and live in Gulf Breeze or live in Pensacola and work in Gulf Breeze, vice versa. And so we've done some job swapping, actually. I'm a PT and I work in Gulf Breeze, I live in Pensacola, well, vice versa. They're actually temporarily working where they live now.
Wow.
And that's been helpful. And we've been trying to be very creative with staggering hours so that we're not hitting some of the peak times of traffic. But it's certainly impacted our workforce. It's impacted our physicians and even patients. We've got quite a number of patients that access Gulf Breeze Hospital from Pensacola, thousands of them annually. And obviously this is complicating their care. We haven't seen a downturn at Andrews. Those folks are going to travel from wherever to get to Andrews Institute. But we're certainly seeing a little bit of that happening at Gulf Breeze Hospital for patients.
I guess, Eric and Janice, let me ask you a question. We talked a little bit about this at the meeting, but FDOT has a plan, I guess, that they're going to completely rehabilitate the first section of the bridge. Let me see if I get this enunciated just right, to an exact 75-year standard, no temporary repairs. They're going to make sure they get that done, and they believe it will take 6 months. I'm a skeptic. I hope it does, but I'm just not. Based on other projects I've seen and the way they've handled some things, I'm not let's just say I'm not really thinking it's going to happen. But let me ask you a question. And this is, you don't have to answer it. Maybe it's kind of rhetorical, but doesn't it seem like it would make sense to get traffic flowing as quick as possible? They have technology. You talk about barges. They have temporary graded spans. After Hurricane Ivan, within 20 days on Interstate 10, they had traffic going. Now, it wasn't fun. I drove over it. It wasn't pleasant, but they got the traffic moving. Don't you think it would make more sense to do temporary repairs on the span that was completed and bridge those gaps with grates, whatever it takes to get traffic, at least auto traffic going, and then complete the second span that they're working on right now to the 75-year standard, open that up, and then come back and do it? Am I wrong on that? Is there some brilliant reasoning that trumps what I'm thinking is common sense that a lot of people are thinking? I'll go to you first, Eric.
Well, knowing the bridge and the situation during Ivan, the sections were floated away. So the surge came in, it floated the section away. We didn't have structural damage to the pillars or to any other parts of the bridge. So it was easy to come in and put those grates down and replace it and put those temporary grates in and get the traffic going. In this situation, the bridge was beat to heck by a barge. All the pillars, concrete's missing. So I don't know, I'm not a bridge engineer by no means, but structurally, I want to make sure that that thing's entirely sound before we start putting pieces on it, that it's going to support everything that we're going to put on top of it.
Sure.
Like Ivan, where it was floated away, that's a little easier to me in my mind than a barge beating the whole bridge all up and down the bridge and
Sure.
barge tearing it apart and chipping concrete away. So
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
that's the piece. That's the piece. When you see the pictures, we have, slideshows. Now, of course, they're just slideshows from our boats, from our risk manager and our captain. But based on the conversations, like Eric is saying, it literally was like a pinball machine, numerous barges. And so the damage is not just the couple of sections. There is a ton of structural damage up and down those pylons.
Well, then,
So-
okay. Well, here's the thing. You can't have it both ways then, FDOT. You can't tell us look us in the eye with a straight face and say, well, it'll be 6 months. Because what I'm hearing from you guys is, it sounds like massive, massive structural damage, which is no way they're going to get it done in 6 months. No way. They can't do a quarter mile of 9 Mile road in 6 months, for God's sake. So I don't know. It just seems to me that there's a way to, if there was some incentive to get that thing going with traffic, I just think there would be a better way, but maybe that's just my opinion. You're right. I
Well,
haven't
they're
seen
going to make an announcement
engineer.
today at noon that I don't know for sure what all they're going to say, but FDOT is going to hold a press conference today. There's a meeting at 11 o'clock with FDOT. I don't know that Skanska will be there, but they are doing one downtown at City Hall. We have a long-term recovery meeting here, so we'll have to send other representatives to that meeting. But, based on the conversation yesterday, I mean, they seem pretty convinced that they can make those changes. I'm not a bridge engineer. I do agree that it sounds a bit
Optimistic. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I hate to be the guy, but it's not even my district or anything, but people that live in my district travel to Gulf Breeze and vice versa. And it's creating tumult like you would not believe. 90-minute commutes, 2 hours, one way, with this traffic, and heaven forbid there's a wreck on the Garson Point Bridge. And then there's the uncertainty of who's going to pay the tolls. It's going to be a $5 toll. We don't know. We're hearing mixed messages. I just think that's something that we need better communication on that issue. And because we're putting businesses out of business. Gulf Breeze, there's businesses right there where the foot of the bridge comes in. They're struggling. They're going to be, you're going to put some businesses out of business if we don't get that traffic moving again. But I guess.
I think the thing that's disappointing is that to me personally, we had, I thought, a very good group working with a white paper for the ferry, because a 30-minute ferry commute, people can work on the ferry. There's Wi-Fi on the ferry. I mean, they do this all over the world.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was really a good opportunity for our community to maybe change the way we look at transportation. And so I was really looking forward to that. And so I think that may not necessarily be the direction that folks want to go. And so maybe that's why the 6-month time frame has been the frame that they've talked about, because maybe they think that, if they do it within 6 months, it makes the ferry kind of not necessary. But personally, I just really did think that as a region, that was going to be a really good option. Like I said, they do it all over the world.
Yeah, they sure do. And I think the frustration that I'm sensing from constituents is this iron fist of government. Okay, so now we're going to go after, there were some entrepreneurs that went out there, licensed captains, nice boats, and they're trying to go out and fill a need, the private market, and provide rides back and forth. There were people that were doing it and paying it. And here comes the government. No, you can't. You haven't checked this box and submitted this form. You don't have this. And it just seems ridiculous. I mean, it's a crisis, frankly. It is. If you own a business in Gulf Breeze right there at the foot of the bridge, or you're an employee that needs to get to the beach every day, and maybe someone who's not making a whole lot of money working at a hotel, and you suddenly have to do an extra commute of 90 minutes, and you've got to pay that gas, it's a crisis. And so instead of like helping, hey, here's an expedited way that if you want to run, a boat across and you want to do something, we're going to shut you down. I just think, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy. Things just don't make sense to me.
We are helping with that one bus service, from the Civic Center around to the base of the Garson Point Bridge, at the Walmart there. So we are helping try and provide that option, but it's still a substantial, 45-minute ride. I mean,
if you're lucky. I guarantee you at 4 o'clock, it ain't a 45-minute ride.
No, that's right.
It ain't a 40. Well, and we are, exactly, we are trying to do that. And are you saying that the ferry thing, is that thing dead on arrival? I mean, are we not going to do a ferry now?
Well, the other day, I think DOT said if we can get this fixed in 6 months, we don't necessarily need a ferry. And, one of the things that we've been very clear about is that ferry services are subsidized in most places, like I said, around the world, and particularly in the United States. And so we were going to need that subsidy. So they were going to help us with the Florida Highway, I guess I would say, contract procurement of a ferry. And next thing we know, they're saying, oh, we can fix the bridge in 6 months, and so we don't need a ferry. And so maybe today they'll tell us something different. I'm hoping for good news today. Like maybe they'll say, well, maybe 6 months is enough time to do a ferry. And we'll see from that, because Gulf Breeze had already put a substantial amount of work and effort in trying to get Shoreline, get their park ready for it. We had already put in some substantial work in terms of a trolley where you could park at the churches and park at the community center, and then we could get you down, to where the ferry would, take you off of Shoreline. I mean, there were a lot of logistics that had already been coordinated and worked out. And so I think we're ready if the state or someone wants to come in and write, subsidize or, try and support a ferry. It's just a matter of, Escambia County, the city of Pensacola, and Gulf Breeze can't. It's, I think, by about $40,000 a day.
Yeah, there's no
so,
chance we could do it.
Yeah.
Well,
If it's 150 passenger, not what you were saying, which was, individuals that have the captain's right and can carry 20 people per vehicle. Per boat. That's clearly still an option.
well, I don't know. It's my understanding that the Coast Guard now is shutting them down and different things
okay, I had
because
not
they're
heard
not a
that.
licensed ferry service. It's ridiculous. It's government at its worst, really, in my opinion. But okay, so 6 months, starting when? Starting now? Starting 2 weeks ago? Starting after? It's time to start really holding them to their timelines. And I'm not talking about Skanska. I'm talking about FDOT. You know what project I'm dealing with in my district that's an absolute disaster.
2 years. It's going to be 2 years behind, right?
2 years, more than 2 years. And I just, my heart rate goes up. My blood pressure goes up just thinking about it, because everyone in my district thinks that's my project. That's Jeff's project. That's the nickname, Jeff's road widening. So when did that 6 month clock start?
Well, in my opinion, it started a week ago when they made that. Yeah. Last Thursday, I believe, is when it was either Tuesday or Thursday, whenever we had the call. And I think it was Thursday. I got to be honest with you. I don't even know what day, because Eric and I are here all the time. So, every day of the week. So I don't even know. Sunday's the only day I know I go to church, and then I come here. That's the only day I know of the week.
Groundhog Day. I know it's crazy. Look, and I didn't mean to come across intense, but the flavor of the phone calls Debbie and I are getting, people are angry. They're very angry about a lot of different things, and one of the things they're angry about is this bridge being out. It's really affecting people's lives in a radical way, and they feel like there just hasn't been communication from FDOT. And I don't know how to make them do more. I can't wait for the next TPO meeting. Let's just put it that way. I can't wait for that meeting. We're gonna have a lot to say.
I think you'll get something at noon today. It may not be what you want, but I do think they've heard us loud and clear that they need to be more proactive. We're now 3 weeks, and this will be the first quote unquote press conference. The other thing
that's unacceptable.
Yeah,
they got to be out there weekly with an update. I want a weekly update. They have got to do that for the citizens of this 2-county area. They owe it to us. But hey, one last thing, when we're talking about the EOC, and you guys, look, Eric and Janice and everyone doing the press conference is fantastic. One of the biggest complaints I'm getting now is, and I know we have no control over it, is about Cox Cable and internet. Obviously with students now doing school remotely, that became a big deal. Can we incorporate that into our EOC process going forward? Because I was flying blind. Luckily, I had Cam Johnson's number. I had some other folks that I could reach out to, but it was just kind of, the effort was disjointed. Is that something we can incorporate? Because that's really an essential utility these days. It really is.
So back in the day, they used to be in the EOC, right, Eric?
Right,
And
exactly.
Charter Spectrum did send somebody here, but I'll let Eric speak to that, because we've had some issues. Some people have told us it's COVID, but we have places here where we can isolate people, where we can give them a private room. And but I'll let Eric speak to the utilities.
So we're shoring that up. We're gonna, our utilities used to play in a room with us and used to show up, but they're using, as Janice said, COVID as an excuse for not being in the room. So we had to beat several utilities up in the beginning, and we got them in here. So we're going to shore those things up, make sure that we do have those partners in this room. That way, when we have those outages or we have those difficulties, we can have somebody face-to-face in the room and express our concern or find out what the timeline is or find out what the holdup is. So we're going to work on shoring that up, making sure that we do have those partners sitting at the table in the EOC with us. That way, when those complaints do come in, that we can, so.
No, that's fantastic. And other than that, I think you guys, you've done a great job communicating with people, Eric. I mean, I feel like ever since you took this job over, you've just been tested once after another. It's just trial by fire. So I appreciate you hanging in there.
I told Janice I want to order 10 snowplows and 2 salt trucks. I'm just going to get ahead of that. So
Right.
We're getting ahead of winter.
Wow.
I did want to say, I think this is one of the first time in Escambia County history that we're under 3 local states of emergency at the same time. So we've got Delta, Sally, and of course the pandemic with COVID. And, it's extremely challenging. I don't know if Eric is the bad rabbit's foot or if I'm the bad rabbit's foot. We're not quite sure. We're both
Don't blame Janice.
for the title.
Well, and I know we've got a lot of recovery to go. I think, sometimes the good news gets kind of washed over. I know that it was a Herculean effort to get the individual assistance from FEMA. That's a big, big deal. I know everyone, I was on text messaging with Marco Rubio. We're everyone pulling from the same side of the rope. And I'm so relieved for the citizens in Escambia County who are underinsured or uninsured that they'll be able to get that assistance.
Yeah, we've had nearly 10,000 individual requests right now. And I've been to all 3 of the DRCs and watched how they operate. Obviously by the app or online are going to be your best way to apply, because the in-person, they're going to have to take your name, kind of take an appointment, because it takes about 2 to 3 hours to get, you don't want to sit there and wait for 2 or 3 hours, but they will call you back and let you come back. But it's very sad. We've got several citizens that are completely homeless, that their house is completely destroyed, and they have, situations that they can't leave their home. And the alternative sources are, like, let's say a FEMA trailer or something might not be opportunity for them because they have people in wheelchairs, 2 or 3 people in their home in a wheelchair. And so we're trying to triage some of those social services issues, but they've already taken over, I think, 10,000 applications. Yesterday morning it was 9,600. So I'm assuming they're over 10,000, just based on the demonstrated need that we've seen. But the teams have been great. They've been very responsive to the citizens. And so, like I said, I've been to visit and I've watched the flow. And while it's sad to see the situation for why folks have to come for support, I do think that the people there genuinely are there from FEMA to help, and they've been very supportive.
And I can't help but think if we had not worked to get that individual assistance piece, that's 10,000 people that would have been really hard, out of luck and then really stuck in a bad position. So yeah, we certainly don't get the credit deserved on that. I want to thank you personally, Janice. I know Eric, you and your staff, everyone, my counterparts on the board, I know we're making personal pleas to Congressman Gates and others. We were all doing it. So it's just good that we've got that. Hopefully the citizens are able to get what they need. Mark, I want to throw it back to you, and I wanted to ask you to let any viewers know, when it comes to the vaccine, how soon do you think that will be available? There's a lot of folks that are still very, very concerned about the pandemic. Do you have any kind of timeline, kind of switching gears back to COVID, any kind of timeline of when you think that is going to be out? We've heard different things about by the election, what's your honest assessment of that?
I don't, so everything I read is indicating that it's not going to be by the election, certainly. Okay. That Moderna had one vaccine candidate that was pretty far along, but they'd fallen short of their requirements, so it's going to be later. Their CEO was optimistic October, November, but then he stated a few days ago that now it's going to be well into the fall or winter. Honestly, I would say this: we might have a candidate or two, a vaccine that's available for first responders, healthcare workers, vulnerable citizens by the end of the calendar year or into the winter. And then I think it would be more broadly available for more citizens spring, summer of 2021. Obviously, it's very fluid. If any or all these candidates fall through, they're not effective, then you reset the clock. I don't think that's going to happen. And then there's the administration. Some are injections, a series of 2 a month apart. Some are nasal sprays. There's all sorts of variables right now. my optimistic side is that it will be available before the bridge is done. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know about that.
Well,
I do think
that's awesome. Oh, that's
I
great.
do think, hopefully early to mid 2021, we'll see a vaccine.
That was a great answer, man. That was awesome. Well, hey, it's amazing how quick an hour goes. We're doing these coffees once a month now. We're back to, because of COVID being kind of at the level where it's at. We were doing it weekly for a while there, but I certainly want to thank Mark Faulkner, you and your staff at Baptist. I mean, you guys do amazing work in this community, and the other hospitals, Ascension, Sacred Heart, and West Florida, and Community Health Northwest, and Health and Hope Clinic. Everyone that helps citizens. We just appreciate that. And I would just ask you, Mark, please, from me and from the county, please express that to your staff, our gratitude to the nurses, the frontline workers, the doctors. I mean, we're an amazing country. Even though we have our issues, our healthcare system, as much as it gets beat up, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else if I was really sick and down on my luck than the United States of America. So thank you for that. Eric, great work at the EOC. Thanks for all your hard work and keeping us safe, keeping us informed. And Janice, I know it's been a tough year and a half for you. I mean, it's just been it's been nonstop, but we appreciate you. We appreciate you all.
Thank
and
you.
so we'll see you guys next month on the next Coffee with the Commissioner. Thank you for being here. And
all we'll be talking about is how good the bridge is coming along,
Yes.
and how recovery's going great.
Thanksgiving's coming.
Right.
oh, that's right. That's right. Well, hey, you guys have a great rest of the week. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you all soon.